Welcome to Socially Unacceptable, from F***ups to Fame, the marketing podcast that celebrates the professional mishaps, mistakes and misjudgments while delivering valuable marketing and life lessons in the time it takes you to eat your lunch. So this must have been a dream job role in theory.
I was it.
Yeah.
I would have loved
How old
to do
were you
it.
then?
Was it 22, 23?
Yeah, that's the dream graduate job, isn't it?
Bright-eyed and bushy tail. Until you stood there at 5 a.m. outside Ministry of Sound.
Yeah, trying to get drunk people to do a cool little Snapchat for you. How do we work with influencers on a long-term partnership? How do we build credibility, authenticity? But also, they're content creators. You know, so instead of us going, we need you to say this and we need you to write this, us going, this is the brief we want you to kind of address. You make it in the way that you know is the most engaging, the most authentic, the most credible. It's okay to go, I don't know that. You know, I've got people in my team who are way more technical understanding of things like social, of influencer marketing, of content creation. You know, it's no point me kind of going, no, I need to hold on to that, I need to control that. It's kind of going, let's give more autonomy and trust and let people feel empowered to take what they're good at and run with it.
That's exactly what I have to do here. That's what because you start out trying to do everything and then eventually you've just got to let the cleverer people do whatever they've got to do. Isn't that right, Vix? So I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever faced resistance internally to using influencer marketing? And if so, how did you address it? In this week's episode, Will's sadly not here, so I'm joined by my co-pilot and head of creative at Prohibition, Vicki Murphy. And we speak to Chris McKay, who is the head of brand engagement at Hillary's. Chris is a brilliant marketer and he's got some fascinating and interesting mistakes that he's going to share on the show. He was very, very honest, and I think you'll enjoy it like we did. He's also been the winner of the Best Use of Sponsorship at ThinkBox TV Planning Awards. He was the winner of In-House Social Media Marketer of the Year at the Social Day Awards, and he's even presented at Brighton SEO. For those of you that go down there, I need to get myself down there. I know you're going to enjoy this episode because Chris has been really honest and he shares some fascinating marketing mistakes. So, as always, sit back and relax and let's hear how you can improve your influencer marketing without having to spend hours and hours and hours learning how to do it. Hi everybody, welcome back to Socially Acceptable. Thank you for joining us. And today we've got two glamorous people in the studio with us. We've got the lovely Vicki Murphy.
Guess who's back?
That's going.
No, sorry, hello.
That's definitely going in.
Hi, I'm back.
And we've also got Chris McKay. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And hello. And I haven't got a funny little wink to do to the camera. But.
Probably best.
So you're head of brand engagement at Hillary's, right? And we've known each other. Well, you've been coming along to the Prohibition events since they were in the real world before the pandemic. Yes. So that was like, when did you tell us a bit about why you work there and what you do there?
So I've been at Hillary's now for 11 years. I started off as a social media exec, kind of came in, and I kind of at that point, I think social was all about, Google Plus was a thing, so that probably shows how old it was.
I remember that.
And it was all about fans, competitions, all of that stuff. I think over the last kind of 11 years, I've basically kind of started adding on more and more media and created ultimately a team that was all about engaging with our customers. And I suppose the best way I explain it is my role is to come up with the plan and the strategy around changing the awareness, the perception and the consideration of a brand. So I look after social media, influencers, all the way through to things like brand TV, video on demand, content creation, video, etc.
Big role.
So Hillary's Blinds, how many different products have they got? Just whistle us through what sort of products.
Now I'm going to become a sales advisor.
What sort of products do they sell? Yes.
So Hillary's have
basically in the name, right?
Yeah, we basically have. Well, technically now it's just Hillary's. So Hillary's Blinds is the old name we had. We transitioned into just Hillary's. We do an in-home made-to-measure window furnishing service. So we have 1,100 or so advisors around the country that go into people's homes, measure and fit the products, and just make sure that ultimately the product is the right one for the right solution and it's measured and fitted correctly. In terms of actual overall products, we have thousands of different fabrics and colours. We do everything from roller blinds, Romans, vertical blinds that people might know, all the way through to shutters, awnings. We do smart technology as well, so motorised blinds that you can operate through remotes or... and we also have some other multiple brands that sit within our group as well that offer kind of premium offerings of those window furnishings products as well.
Okay.
Fab.
And so you started as social media exec. So what does a head of brand engagement do in 2024 then? What are you doing now?
So,
what's your day-to-day?
What's my day-to-day? So this feels like it's an appraisal kind of moment now.
Yeah, we're going to review your performance.
So I am currently kind of looking after our, I suppose, next 2 or 3 years worth of strategy for our brand activity. We have a number of different challenges across our different brands. I suppose the things that I spend a lot of time doing, which people probably don't realise, is insight, understanding. I think when people think about brand advertising, they think a lot about stuff like, oh, I'm going to sponsor the World Cup, or I'm going to put an ad on a massive billboard and tick, I've kind of done some brand. Whereas actually, a lot of it is kind of going back to the, why aren't people buying from us? What do people need from us? Which demographics are we trying to grow into? So there's a lot of insight led that come from our amazing insight team that tell us some of this stuff. And then it's kind of my role to work with our agencies to ultimately come up with a plan to deploy that in the right area. So we have a communications team that come up with the what do we need to say.
How many in that team?
In the communications team.
Yeah.
So there's around about probably 6 or 7, and then we work with an agency as well, with a communications agency.
Yeah.
And then I kind of have about 11 or 12 in my team, and then we have a media agency as well that we work with.
Okay, so do you go the media agency? Do they do the media planning and buying and everything?
Yeah, they do, but we work really closely with them. I think it's one of those where we have weekly calls with them. We're in contact with them pretty much every single day. We're constantly trying to go to their offices and bring them to ours, and we share a lot. I think there's a lot of value in actually treating an agency like an extension of the team rather than just an agency. So you're
preaching to the converted. Yeah. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah. Because there's no point just kind of giving them a brief and going, come back to us with a plan. We have to give them all the insights and the data and the understanding to help them give us the best plan possible.
Okay. Right, but this show's all about fuck-ups, right? So we could get into the good stuff that you're doing today. I wanted to take you right back. So we were just talking before we started recording about where you started your career, and you actually started in Leeds, which I didn't know for a start. With Vicki and I were talking about it with you, weren't we? And you started at a company called Cow PR, right?
Yeah, so I trained as a journalist, and then I went into a bit of freelance journalism. Realised there was absolutely no money in freelance journalism at that point. So I ended up kind of just looking for a role and was offered a job as a PR assistant, PR exec at Cow PR. So literally just 3 doors down the road from here. Worked on things like Cravendale, Campbell's Soup, stuff like that.
Okay.
And that was a really great insight into actually understanding consumer PR. But unfortunately, the office shut down. So it ended up moving off to London.
The thriving Leeds community.
Yeah. To be fair, there was only 3 of us in the office. The head office was meant to be in London anyway. So we ended up, myself and another girl ended up in London. And then, my London career started.
How many people were in the London office then?
Oh, I'm going to say at least probably 20, 25, something like that. And that's where a lot of the clients were and a lot of kind of the main roles were. And then I went from kind of Cow PR over to Ministry of Sound, so which
fascinates me. And you've got Ministry of Sound as somebody who loves dance music. Obviously, you were there during their high profile time when they were producing. Vicki and I were talking about the different albums that they produced, like the
3 CDs.
How many of those classic albums did they do?
Oh my god!
It was different volume.
Yeah, there was different volume.
Remember now 56. So it's like that version, but for Ministry of Sound.
That's
wasn't it?
Exactly. It was literally every year there was a different volume, but then there was bits in between that where you'd have like the summer Ibiza hits, then you'd have kind of the.
And did they also do the garage anthem ones as well?
Because that's it. Like Ministry of Sound's renowned for like dance music, but in reality they also had a lot of like
different
people like Wretch 32 and stuff like that who were signed as artists that they also produced music for as well.
And they had the club as well.
And they had the club.
Does that still exist?
Yeah. So my role in Ministry of Sound, my role was basically to look after digital marketing for the nightclub and for the radio.
Right.
So we were split as a team.
This must have been a dream job role in
I
theory.
was buzzing.
I would have loved to do that.
Then?
I would have been coming out of uni 22, 23.
Yeah, that's the dream.
I was.
Graduate job, isn't it?
Bright-eyed and bushy tail. Until you stood there at 5 a.m. outside Ministry of Sound.
Yeah, trying to get drunk people to do a cool little Snapchat for you. Yeah. I think at that point I was going, this is going to be incredible. Like, I love dance music. I've written about dance music when I was a journalist. You know, what better way to kind of then launch into a career?
My question is, what the hell were your hours working at Ministry of Sound?
Club hours. I'm gonna put it under. It was mainly 8 till probably 6 during Monday to Friday, but then you also work during the night. So there'd be times where you would go, we've got a really big artist on, we want to do loads of social around it. So the club would start at 11 at night. It'd carry on till 6, 7 in the morning.
I mean, this is my worst nightmare.
It is now. It is my nightmare now. Slippers.
As a new father, thinking about being up through the night, unless I'm doing a feed, I don't want to be up.
Those massive queues outside. Even being in the queue for like 2 hours. What a night. What were we doing?
Trying to get people who were drunk to like look at a camera and just say some stuff was probably some of the hardest things I had to do.
So, and during that time, obviously you've shared something, and you worked with the French DJ Bob Sinclair. And so, for those of people who don't, because I'm in a bit of an aficionado when it comes to the types of dance music, and obviously he did. The most recent track is World Hold On.
I'm glad you sang it, because I thought you were going to sing it.
And then I thought of another one, right, which was which sounds exactly. Video camera guys just totally I've sent him west. I can do another one. He's got the Love Generation.
Yeah.
Which
was the Love Generation.
Those two tracks are so similar, actually. They could be the same track. But then the one track that I remember.
We're still
you'll
going.
like this. You got this one. 2, 3, 4, and back. Do you remember that one? No? Back.
That's old.
Gin Tonic. That's old. That was one of the originals.
School.
I had that on vinyl.
This is taking a real turn.
Sorry. So anyway, that's who Bob Sinclair was. Sorry about the singing. What happened? Come on, fill me in. So
I think I was in that mindset when I kind of went over to Ministry of Sound and kind of in my early career of going like, creative idea, got an idea, I'm just going to run with it. I'm just going to absolutely go full steam. And I think the Bob Sinclair moment for me was probably the real turning point of going, you might have an idea, but before you just go off and do it, maybe just do a bit of due diligence, look at some data, work out some analysis of what's working and what do people want. So he's a French DJ who's come to the club. I thought, wouldn't people love to know, like, translations of things people say at the club in French? So let's do. It's quite French. A character as well, isn't he? Yeah, he is, and he was a lovely guy as well. To be fair to him, we thought, we'll do like French lessons by Bob. So we had cameras, we created like little whiteboards and chalkboards. It was, I think, at that point, and he would kind of do little French lessons. So there was this 10-part series that I'd had set up. After the first two. How long did this take you to...
and what channel are you running this on?
So this was predominantly through Facebook at this point. So that was our biggest platform.
Like a Facebook Live, or was before that?
It was Facebook posts. So this was just literally just Facebook posts.
Welcome to French with Bob.
Yeah, and that's it. And it had like if you imagine probably like a cartoony style kind of like graduation hat on and things like that. Yeah. So there was a bit of a theme behind it. I was loving it. I thought I was onto a winner. And then what I quickly realised was that actually, 18-year-old people who love just going to the club, they don't really care about that. They just want to see really good pictures of the nightclub and people partying in the nightclub. So I posted my first one. Usually we got around about 800 to 1,000 likes at that point per picture. This one, I think, 50. Like literally bombed. And I was sat there with my boss going, I can just imagine you sat there. Well, let's just give the second one a try and see. Second one went similar, like no one. How much time did you spend on doing it? I probably spent a good couple of weeks worth.
However, right, I think you could have just been ahead of your time there, because on TikTok now with that Gen Z audience.
Yeah, French with Bob.
Yeah. I think
let's bring it back. Let's bring it back.
You were just 10 years too soon.
She's right. She's got a point.
I think you were, ahead of the game.
Yeah, I like that phrase. I think I'm going to, instead of a fail, just a bit of an early adopter innovator.
Too early.
But I can imagine that. Yeah, when you've put your heart and soul into something and you think it's going to work.
So I posted it, bombed twice, and then just had to cull it. Just literally had to pull it. And I think that's kind of for me going. I went in with an idea, just brainstormed some ideas, kind of didn't even check going. What do people want? What's the content people are engaging with? Do a bit of testing. Let's see what people actually want to see. And then it was probably my worst campaign I've done. Well,
the truth, the moral of the story there is test, isn't it? Because I mean, if you test whatever you test, not everything works, and you've tested something and it didn't work.
And just doing a bit of, look at the data before you come up with an idea. I think again we can get really caught into doing creative brainstorms, but insight's got to drive a lot of it. And I think I've really transitioned into understand the insights and then let that lead the creative brainstorm.
Yeah.
Instead of just going straight in with what ideas does everyone have and picking a very subjective, which one do we really like?
Yeah.
So after that, what was your most successful thing that you did at Ministry of Sound then?
I think probably we did.
And who was the biggest artist as well? You said big artists.
I'd say the biggest artist is still probably Armin van Buuren.
I
think he was DJ Mag's #1 artist for a good number
at the time.
of years.
Yeah.
At the time.
You got a little line for us there, Chris?
No, because it's the hard house, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got to
do
more of the
Okay.
beat rather than the lyrics for that.
Yeah, it's not my style. Thanks though.
We'll move on.
But there was people like Fede Legrand, there was Benny Benassi. So there was some obviously big names. I think one of the biggest successes probably there was looking at the radio side. So the radio side of Ministry was probably something that people didn't really know that much about. So when I was there, we did a live stream from Tomorrowland. So for those who don't know, Tomorrowland is like a huge dance music festival in Belgium. So we did a live stream from that, and it was my job to kind of pull that creative together, get content from the people over there, get it back, publish it. And we actually crashed the website. Now, in today's website news, it's like, no, what are you doing? You're going to miss loads of sales. For us, I was like, wow. Like, we've got so much traffic to that website that people want to listen to Ministry of Sound's live version of Tomorrowland. So for me, that was like, social drove a lot of traffic in there. People have listened to it. And yeah, so from going from 50 likes to crashing a website is...
Well, that's...
0 to hero.
Yeah. And what was did you have insight to do that, or did you just go out?
We did.
Did you go over there as well?
No, so we had a presenter over there,
right.
And then they would get loads of content, send it back,
right? Okay.
And then we had a radio producer that pretty much worked tirelessly through that activity to make sure that all the streams worked and nothing went down. So yeah, it was incredible, and to work on kind of that live, instantaneous, getting content, publish it, get it out, was really exciting and fun as well.
Okay, cool. And then we've got another one here, haven't we?
Yeah,
so,
I found this one really interesting. I feel like another failure to go,
through.
I really am hoping this isn't watched by my boss.
No, but I think this one is one that we hear time and time again in terms of not having to always be the kind of smartest in the room concept. That idea, you hear it more and more in terms of tapping into other people's talents and not always thinking that everything has to come from you, and tapping into other people.
I think there's a real.
So we're talking about the algorithm.
I was going to say,
right?
you're talking about the dreaded A word.
Let's talk about algorithm gate. So
talk us through it.
So you wanted to create an algorithm.
So basically, this was when we worked at Hillary's, and when I started at Hillary's, kind of we're very data obsessed, and it's probably where a lot of my kind of like understanding of insights is really driven from. A lot of what we do is based on insights and data. We want to really understand, what is the performance of I suppose each individual service advisors that are out there. So I was kind of given the task again, kind of bit of an early project for me, and the term algorithm kind of got banded around a bit because we've got so many data points. It was like, how do you kind of pull all of it together to give one really easy to understand kind of score, whatever it might be. And I had no idea. I have no idea how to build an algorithm. I can't even say, I don't even know what program to start on. So for me, it was like, right, what do I do? So I just read up some bits online. I started using...
Had you pretended you did?
No.
So it wasn't like,
I didn't
great
trick anyone into thinking I knew what I was talking about.
Didn't you just want to speak to a web developer? Yeah. I'd have just gone, I've got no fucking clue how to do this. I'm going to speak to a web developer. This is the problem and this is the solution.
In hindsight, Chris, that would have been the greatest starting point.
But not great content for this podcast.
Yeah, but as a fuck up, that wouldn't have made the story.
No, true.
So what I did was I got an Excel spreadsheet and I put in all these data points. Okay. I used VLOOKUP as much as I could to try and find other spreadsheets that already had that data. And I then tried to add weightings to certain data. So I started doing formulas that added times that by 0.75 and times that by 0.8. And then I needed some help because then I was like, well, I don't really understand these formulas. So then I got some people from finance to come and help me. And they were like, I don't understand what you're trying to do. I was like, well, let's power through together. It'll be fine.
I like this. Yeah. You're a go-getter.
Then there was someone from some people from the customer insights team who, again, they were kind of going, wow, this is getting really complicated. And it kind of got to a point where we had to have a laptop run constantly because every time we opened the file, it was looking up so many different data points that it would crash. So we had to just leave it on and let the data just get updated.
But as you were going through this process, did you think this is going, like, we're nearly there?
I thought, this is getting really complicated. This is really exciting. Like, I've never done this. I've never done this before. And I started I started writing a paper to explain what it looks like. And I'll get onto that in a minute because I think at that point when I wrote the paper, I should have probably gone, that's a really complicated thing that probably most people aren't really going to understand how it works, let alone then know how to improve their scores and stuff. So over the course of this period, I think 3 people from the finance team left. I think we lost 3 people from the customer insights team. I think 4 or so laptops might have died and crashed. And in reality, if we fast forward to where it is now, I think the big thing for me was just going, there were people in those teams who, if a brief went to them to go, this is what we're trying to do, this is the output we're looking to try and get to, what's the best way of doing it, they would have just come up with what the solution is now, which is a really simple, easy to understand plan that actually, they've got all the skills and they've got all the knowledge and the tools to be able to quickly update and share and kind of edit it as and when we need it. There isn't an algorithm anymore. That shows how probably far away from the mark we were. It's more of just a case of going, we've got all these data points, there's a little mathematical equation that kind of turns it into a really easy to understand format. And I can't take any credit for where it's ended up because everything that I think I was trying to do was going, that's too complicated. Let's rip that up and give that as someone else.
I quite like the fact that you went at it, though. I mean, you're seeing that as a fail. I think that's like... Because a lot of people... I mean, as soon as you said the words Excel spreadsheet formula... I could see Vicki was getting confused because she wouldn't know how to...
You wouldn't even ask me that.
I wouldn't, because she just look at me and go, I'm not doing that.
That's not for me.
Technology, so a lot of people get frightened because Excel formulas are complicated enough, aren't they, right?
Yeah,
the fact you're getting stuck into that is, I think that's quite impressive.
Did you have to rip that up then, or did you continue to get to the stage you are now? Like,
no, to be fair, we drew a bit of a line in the sand where we went, this is quite complicated. Like, I think in one of my explanations for stuff, I had a section that explained what the raw data was. Then I explained what the weighted data looked like. Then I explained what the the front-facing data looked like. I think when I have 3 variations of data that I've got to explain and I'm adding weight into things, it's probably too complicated. So we drew a line in the sand. A couple of people who were way smarter than me at understanding what we were trying to get to and how to get there ultimately took over the project. And I think, again, it's kind of going, it's okay to step back from something. I think you see a lot of people go, I failed. Oh, that's really bad. I'm now kind of, I've got to kind of be ashamed at it. I've kind of gone, ultimately, the right people are going to get it to the right place. And I think as I've kind of progressed through my career, I've kind of got to a point where it's going, it's okay to go, I don't know that. I've got people in my team who are way more technical understanding of things like social, of influencer marketing, of content creation. It's no point me kind of going, no, I need to hold on to that and I need to control that. It's kind of going, let's give more autonomy and trust and let people feel empowered to take what they're good at and run with it.
That's exactly what I have to do here. That's what because you start out trying to do everything and then eventually you've just got to let the cleverer people do whatever they've got to do. Isn't that right, Vix? So you meant before we spoke, you talked about brand activations. So do you want to tell me a bit about what you mean by that and what you do with brand activations?
Yeah, so I suppose myself and our head of brand are probably a little bit of a dynamic duo, I kind of say. So we work really closely to go, she'll go, what are we trying to say? Ultimately, the challenge as a brand is people aren't buying from us for X, Y, and Z reasons. And she'll go, this is what we need to say, this is how we need to address it, and these are kinds of the messages we need to get out there. And then she'll come to me with a bit of a, how do we then communicate that out effectively? Yeah. So my role is to sit there and look at it and go, if we're going after a certain demographic, what media do they use? What are their behaviours? What type of stuff do they engage with? But then on the other side of it, we'll look at it and go, actually, how do we get the most effective reach? Or we're trying to really change people's perception of a brand. Where are they most engaged with content, and which platforms do we need to be on? So my role is basically going, how do we make what we've got and the content and the creative and the consumer message as effective as possible to move those dials? And we measure that through things like brand tracker. We measure it through things like mixed media modelling, so old econometric modelling, to go, was that the right plan? So I might go, we've got a brand TV campaign that we need to do because that's really effective reach. Or we might go, actually, we need slightly lower funnel activity. So we might do a partnership with, recently we've done something with Global and Future, where we've done a really integrated content, I suppose, partnership, where we've talked about the really key elements of Hillary's, what makes us better than kind of trying to do it yourself. And we've told that story in a really, I suppose, contextually relevant way.
And have you found, because this sector is it's in a very exciting time, isn't it? And I suppose these past 5 years in particular, with the way especially socials changed, and there's been such a rush towards people doing things, learning how to do things at home, sharing on kind of influencer tips, taking them on board. Have you found that you've had to totally switch your approach from a social point of view? Because you said that you rebranded as Hillary's, and that must have been a big change in terms of, was that an audience?
No, I think it was just a development of the brand, to be honest. As we started to attach more and more products, we were known as Hillary's Blinds, whereas actually, we do way more than that. I suppose our approach to social has always been really tricky as well, because we are a lead generation product. We actually are a business that need to build appointments, whereas social seems to be leaning very quickly, and it has always kind of moved towards e-commerce.
Yeah.
So a lot of products that they come to light with are, buy through the platforms, shop lives, etc., which, we just don't do. So I suppose that the mindset that we've had to really try to approach is, there's a shop that you can buy through Instagram. Instagram Shops is a thing. How do we take that platform or that format and make it work for us? So, for us, it's things like, yes, you can go and buy a product, direct through something like Pinterest, but actually we do samples or brochures. How do we make that work maybe slightly different to the sales setup that they've got, but it kind of works for our format? So I think for social, for us, is about kind of making what they have fit with our model a little bit more. The biggest change for us has been influencers. I think influencers has been a real big turning point for us, where the pay to post model has completely gone out the window. And I think, we think back to even 8 years ago or so, where the team were maybe getting ad hoc requests from businesses or kind of influencers to just get a free product. Now it's, how do we work with influencers on a long-term partnership? How do we build credibility, authenticity? But also, they're content creators. So instead of us going, we need you to say this and we need you to write this, us going, this is the brief we want you to kind of address. You make it in the way that is the most engaging, the most authentic, the most credible. So for us, it's kind of changing the mindset as well as changing the approach. Yeah,
it has. That's the maturity of the influencer marketing. It has moved away from being spoon-fed to do this, do 3 tweets, do as a blog post, a video, whatever, to now just create your own thing and go at it, as long as you get certain things included.
And the team, we have a PR team that manage all of our influencers, and an absolute testament to them. They have a amazing relationship with influencers. We're over in Ireland at the minute. Our PR manager and our PR exec are over in Ireland at the minute meeting our Irish influencers, because we know the value in those personal relationships. I might upset a few people who might watch this, but I really do not see the value in using that software where you go, they manage all the relationship with the influencers, they'll do all the contracts, they'll do that, because the influencers are then kind of meeting a middleman and then meeting the brand. Yeah. Whereas actually for us, it's, we have the WhatsApps with the influencers, we talk to them, we speak to them, we engage with them on their own socials, that it just builds a really nice community. Yeah. And the authenticity, if you've got a relationship, it makes it a lot stronger.
the ambassador we were talking about that years ago, where you need ambassadors rather than just somebody that pay to play, like you say, because a lot of the people the influencers that used to just get paid to just post something, then they move on to the next thing, and they can have competitors and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So what do the influencers do for you then? What sort of stories are they telling? How do they make it interesting content?
How do they make it interesting?
Yeah.
So we have different influencers that relate to some of the different life stages that we know that people buy from us on. So we might have a home move, we might have a new mum, we might have someone who's recently had kids that flow in the nest. So we'll basically brief them on what our seasonal content plan is at the point. We might brief them on a key product launch. We might brief them on something that we know we need to change the perception on. So, last year, I'd take something really simple. Last year, we wanted to do something around King's coronation, but we don't have the luxury of probably going, oh, let's go get a shoot and let's get this and let's pay a videographer and a photographer. It becomes really costly for quite a very time sensitive post. So we actually briefed the influencer teams to go, we want to get in touch of this cultural moment. We want something that we can post during that period. Can you ultimately create our content for us that we can then post out? So we use them for cultural relevance and seasonal stuff that ultimately would have cost us loads of money to do a full shoot on. Or we will give them a brief that goes, we've got a product launch and we want you to kind of take this angle of it to kind of talk about this benefit of the product launch. And we've had influencers where, like Motorized, for example, they woke their kids up because the kids wouldn't wake up. So they did this funny little video of them opening the blinds from outside the door so the sun would come in and wake up the child. So it was like, I'm using Hillary's to help wake my kid up because they just sleep through the morning without them. So there's really kind of like nuances that they can pick up on.
Yeah, nice. I like your strategy, by the way. I think it's bang on. Is what you're talking about there? Having direct interaction with the influencers sounds really useful and better. You're going to get a better result from that. What sort of level of influencers are you using though? Are they nano, micro, or?
It's a real mixture, So we've probably again looking. I always say over the past so many years, but if I look, we started working with people like George Clark, when we did Homes on 4 sponsorship. So that kind of was we need a big influencer to help support this brand activity. We've now got to the point where we've got some that might have 2,000 or 3,000 followers. We've got some that might have 20. We've got some that might have 50 or 60. And I think what we've kind of found is that it's, and I'm going to probably repeat everything that people say. It's not about the followers. It's about the engagement and it's about kind of the audience that they've got. So we will find people that we will look at and go, they are primed they talk about stuff that we know our customers are interested in. We know that that's the reason people buy from Hillary's. And if they've got 5,000 or 10,000 followers, doesn't matter to us. It's the stories that they're telling. But in reality, we're on the full spectrum, we've also got influencers that we now call ourselves partners with, which are people like Abigail Ahern, who started as an influencer. We made some collaborative content with her. She now has 2 product collections with us. So we've moved her through that kind of journey of going, create some content. At that point, it was about don't be afraid of the dark. It was released around Halloween. We did some stuff around it's okay to use dark interiors in your home. Don't be scared of them. Over the course of 5, 6, 7 years, we've now released 2 collections with her. We've done a full product launch, full PR campaign around it, and she's kind of gone from one end all the way to the other.
That's really interesting. And how often are you constantly updating your ambassador program or, adding to it? Or is it you kind of look at it, 12 months or how does that work?
So we have we call them the interior squad. Now that is a name coined by our PR manager. And like I said, she's got to take a lot of credit for this. It was her idea and her conception of how she wanted to pull this together. So we had 6 last year. We've now doubled that this year. Okay. So it's a big, increase in investment for us. But we see the huge benefit from it. We not only see great content that comes from it, engagement rate is better, net sentiment score on social is better. We see things like cost per asset. So what would normally cost us, quite a bit to do a big photo shoot, we can turn that around quite quickly. And then when we use that content, other channels can benefit from it, and that ultimately makes them more effective. So, the beauty of kind of this ambassador network now is that they are an incredible face for the brand, and they're producing stuff that everyone can benefit from.
You're using them as content creators as the very reason for your being, rather than using your in-house guys. So it's saving you money, isn't it?
It's saving us money, and it's if I put myself, it's coming from a customer. I think again, probably a massive learning I kind of take over my years is going, no one knows the customer better than the customer.
No.
So trying to come up with a concept or story or something that feels like you're trying to be someone you're not, I think people can see through it now really, really quite a bit. And if you try and, even just down to humour, like people have different variations of humour.
Yeah.
As a brand trying to be humorous, if you don't land that in the right way, it's going to fall flat with your customers. Whereas these ambassadors and these influencers, they get what's funny to their audience. So letting them just drive what's funny, what's humorous, is going to land so much better than us trying to do it for them and just give them a piece of content.
I think that point you make around the cost, and a lot of brands sometimes that we speak to, they underestimate that, and they consider the upfront initial influencer investment as a huge chunk of money, which it is, but that added value that you get from content that you don't have to test, because they do all the testing with their content day in, day out with their audiences. They know what works. They know, even from us, I wouldn't place that here, I'd move it further down in the edit because I know that this will get hit, and all of that expert knowledge that they have from their audience that they talk to every day is invaluable, really, when it comes to, let alone the site, the costs of, the crew and the videography and the production side. Yeah. I think the way that you look at it there is really insightful, and I think could be, you can get a lot from that, because it does you can underestimate the impact that you get from cost saving from working with people who are experts in what they do on a regular basis.
Yeah, we could literally clip that bit of the video and play it to people. Do you want influencer marketing? Because this is what it can do for because people just see it as, like Vic says, as a cost.
Upfront,
But actually, it's a cost and a benefit. There's loads of benefit to it.
And even down to things like SEO now, the whole trust element of EAT and stuff is going, how do you build credibility? Well, you work with people who, if you do it right, if you're able to then integrate that content more and more in your own activity, you can build that SEO trust value. So, it's I think if I look at some of the stuff that we've done with influencers now, it used to sit on its side. It used to be influencer marketing, it's a brand awareness bit. It's part of PR, that's what we do. If I take us back to recently with the Global and Future partnership I was just talking about, we used 3 influencers in that activity to join the dots between PR, influencers, and then the partnership stuff we were doing. And the activity then felt like it was one. Everything we were doing felt like it was one, rather than it kind of going, we'll use, talent that Heart or Future can get us. Well, no, we'll use our own, because then it builds that better link.
Okay, cool. And then the final story you've shared with us. Do you want to tell us a bit about your VOD activity?
Yes, a more recent one, shall we say?
Well, recent's good.
Yeah, and I think again back to kind of mindset. I try and encourage the team where we are, test and learn. Failure's okay. You've just got to keep making learnings from it, because in a world where we are constantly having to adapt to technology, like we were talking about AI just before, without testing it, you're not going to know where the benefits are. So VOD was one of those things for us. We've always done video on demand as part of our brand activity with TV. But we wanted to do something different. We wanted to target specific audiences with our video on demand. And it's not new. You look at Jet2, for example, they do a really great addressable video on demand piece. We wanted to look at that too. And I suppose the big thing for us was really making sure we targeted the right people. If I fast forward now to where we are now, the people we thought we were targeting were maybe not the people that were actually being targeted. And the bit for me is going, it's just about doing that due diligence, because I think there are multiple things that get sold as you can target these people, and we know about these people. But when you kind of end up scrutinising it more and more, you understand maybe, is the data set as robust as we thought it was originally? And it's the same with things like uplift studies. I'm a big believer that, uplift studies are a great tool to prove the value of certain things. But if it's like self-declared versus if it's actually a control and expose, give you two very different variations of whether it's actually beneficial or not. And I think it's some of this stuff with the data, and the VOD is probably a prime example of going self-declared people versus actual people. Do you know the difference? Do you know who you're actually targeting? Do you know which pot you're in? Because what you think you might be targeting might not actually be who you are targeting in that bit.
I like how refreshing you are talking about these failures, because they are actually really insightful, and it actually brings to life the company I'm getting from what you're saying, the company Hillary's that you work for, or the wider company. They take on board those, because a lot of people might be like, God, I've done this wrong. I've spent a lot of time and investment on that, and there might be a fear allocated to that. But it seems like they're quite progressive in terms of, we've tested it hasn't worked, let's move on and try something else.
Do you know what? It's a great company. And I think when I started at Hillary's, I was expecting, I had a perception of probably what a lot of people have. It's the blinds man who comes through the door, it's leaflets through the door. That's what, over the last 50 odd years, that's what's been built on. Getting in, I realised how much, progressive thinking there was. And for me, it's really about going, it's okay to fail at things as long as you've kind of done some of the upfront analysis or upfront data to go, there's a proposal there that, we might not know what the answer is right now, but if you've done enough due diligence, that's fine. I think that's probably the example with the VOD, where you look at it and go, we did as much due diligence as we could do, but the learning probably going forward is, what more could we have done? Yeah. What more scrutiny could we have done? And that's, again, a huge testament to the team. There's 70 of us in the marketing team at Hillary's, and there's even more, as we start to think about kind of some of the other brands that we work across. And, it's driving that mindset that it's okay to keep testing and learning, pushing the boundaries, step change, try things differently. Just make sure you're learning from it and you're taking it into the next piece you might do.
I've got one last question. Obviously, you've been on the show now.
Yeah.
You know what we ask. The sorts of questions that we ask. If you were us, who's the next person you'd get on this show?
Oh my God.
I ask everyone that, and everyone does exactly the same
noise. Tries to think about someone. Do you know what? I am always a big fan, and he's absolutely everywhere, but it probably doesn't surprise me, is people like Rory Sutherland.
I knew you were going to say Rory Sutherland. You're the third person to say.
Because I just think, the approach he takes is on trying to get people to think differently, but also the way that his stories around why brands did things, and people think they did it for one reason, but actually they did it for another reason, I think is always really insightful. But like I said, I think probably a lot of people say that.
What, Rory? Not yet. I think I will do. Yeah, at some point. Rory's got his own podcast, and he's everywhere. He's written a load of books.
Everyone wants Rory.
Everyone, yeah. And he's on TikTok, to be fair. I see some of his. So I will drop him a message and see if he wants to come on. We'll get him on at some point. I'm coming for you, Rory. Thanks for coming on the show. If people want to get in contact with you, how can they find you?
Easiest thing is probably on just LinkedIn. From a professional point of view, I think just drop me a note on LinkedIn. It's just Christopher McKay. You'll find me probably wearing this jumper in the profile picture, so it'll be a really easy link to know it's me. And then just drop me a note.
I'm surprised you didn't come down in the Hillary's branded
in top. The branded way with the blind behind me.
Yeah, exactly. You could have
brought the little
out.
Showcases that they take into customers' homes.
Thank you for listening to Socially Unacceptable. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a 5-star review. Don't forget to follow us on social media on Instagram, TikTok and LinkedIn at Prohibition PR, and Twitter at Socially UA. We would love to hear some of your career fuck-ups so we can share them on the show. For more information on the show, search Prohibition PR in your search engine and click on podcasts. Until next time, please keep pushing the boundaries and embracing the socially unacceptable.